So Sentinel Consulting, who we are. We focus strictly on operational excellence. And what that means is we will work with your operations team to help support the programs and other elements of the organization. So we believe in the three pillars of people, process, and technology. People first, because without the people in our organizations, we can't do the work and you can't fulfill the missions and visions of your org. So always focus on the people first. Our methodology, how do we do it? We don't like to tackle everything at once. We like to plan things out and look for that long-term journey, but we also like to aim for smaller goals, that enough to keep moving the ball forward. And I say that because it's all about incremental steps, always about incremental steps. I want you to think about it. Some of these things we're going to talk about are, you might feel daunted within your organization to say, how are we going to start? But it's all about just little itty bitty steps, because it makes it much easier to accomplish. And one of our services, we do database analysis. We work on Power BI and Power Automate. So if you're a Razor's Edge client, Salesforce, DonorPerfect, Virtuous, whatever you're working with, there's some element of Power BI or custom reporting through Power BI or Tableau. Power Automate, the new two big buzzwords in the world of RE, migration services or managed services. So why this webinar? I think that if you are part of the Razor's Edge discussion groups or any of the discussion groups across the platforms, I've been seeing this question a lot. Hey, I'm new to this CRM, or our organization is thinking of moving to a new CRM, or hey, should we move to a new CRM? Does anyone have any experience? I thought, hey, why not talk about what everybody else is talking about and see what we can all learn from each other? Yeah, because I think in the 25 plus years that I've been doing this, I have seen the world of CRM platforms and fundraising platforms change from where there was only maybe one or two options to now there are probably like 40 or 50 options, depending on your type of organization. Or do you do case management? Are you in higher ed? Are you in cause and cure? And big, small, medium-sized, do you have retail outlets? Whatever your flavor of your organization might be, there is likely a good fit for you somewhere in that vein. What we love about our CRM, and maybe love is a too strong word, but I always use the analogy that your database is your house. So if you know me, as some of you know me on this webinar, you know that I always use the analogy of a home. And I think it's a perfect analogy because, especially in this scenario, just like our homes are never quite done. Like there's always something that you'd love to do. It's like, oh, you know what, this summer we're going to, spruce up the front garden, or you know what, that bathroom probably needs a good paint job. And it's amazing what we can do when we start sprucing things up. So this is my version of the love it part. So if you've ever watched the show, Love It or List It, it's two professionals in the house, there's one is a decorator, the other one's a real estate agent, and they try to convince a family whether they're going to love their home again by tweaking it, painting it, cleaning it up, or are they going to go ahead and say, no, I love what we're going to do, but I'm in love with this other home or this other CRM, and I think I want to take the plunge. So we're going to start with the love it. If you've ever had the opportunity of selling your home or moving, which can be both stressful, daunting, and an amazing task altogether, you'll know that one of the first things you have to do if you're going to sell your home is that you've got to make it look good. Like nowadays, it's got to all look magazine worthy. So in order to love your database, and please feel free to share freely on this, these are just some of our thoughts. This goes back to the three pillars of how we operate, which are the people. The one thing you have to do to have a database that you're going to love is you're going to have to invest in your staff. Staff training is critical. I cannot say enough about that. And how many organizations out there, and there's no poll question for this, but how many organizations out there, and you can just sort of give some emojis out there or whatever the case may be, have it in their budget or can put some money into their budget for ongoing training? Because I know that's always a big one. And I know your jobs are very, very busy, especially if you're a data management person within your organization and you are a team of one. I know you're responsible for so many things. But if you can, I would definitely highly encourage you to try to stay on top of some of the functionality within your database. We do it day in and day out, and we can't always stay up to date on stuff. So definitely invest in staff training. There has to be someone who's an org expert. So someone's got to be the expert in that database. Ideally, more than one person, because we know what happens. We'll get the call and say, Jane or Mark, who has been our DBA for the last 20 years, is leaving, retiring, medical emergency, and nobody knows how to use the database. Nobody knows how to pull a list. Nobody knows how to pull tax receipts. So you cannot be the sole keeper of knowledge. So I strongly recommend that you are the keeper of knowledge, that you also share that knowledge with staff. There should be someone responsible for maintaining the database. Otherwise, if it's sort of everybody's job, it's no one's job, right? Everyone's responsible for helping, but it should be someone's job to manage the process and manage the direction of the database. More importantly, someone should be responsible for sitting at the table and saying, when management, senior leadership, program staff come up with a great idea, please make sure your data management person or team are sitting around at the table. Because what sounds like a good idea practically may not work within the parameters of your database. And there's nothing worse than having a great idea. Then you go to, your database manager and say, we'd like to do X. And then they're stuck holding the bag going, how am I going to get it to do this? Because the system does not do that. Or, hey, did you know that the system could do that and more? So please bring those people to the table. And keeping it clean. Someone's got to keep those drop downs clean. Someone's got to keep all the old data out of the way. This is a perfect time if you're in the Northeast. Spring cleaning, I feel like spring is springing, but as some folks like to say in Canada, this is fool's spring, because we're going to get another douse of some sort of winter weather. So we won't really get spring until May, but we all like to believe we are, just because it's nice and warm today. Anybody else doing anything that they're doing that consistently, that they say, you know what, this is helping to make us love our database a little bit more? And I use love in quotation marks. Feel free to pop that into the chat or pipe up with a question. I know we've got some very experienced users here, and I'd love to hear what you're doing. Okay, Catherine put out that one of her biggest pet peeves is when as a database manager, is the decisions being made, and then it's like, okay, now pull the reports. And we hear that time and time again, because they haven't given you the data or the elements to put in the data. So they're thinking about it backwards. So some of the things that I know some of our staff do for clients, or that we've done in other organizations, is or you always have to be psychic. I like that one. I like that. Folks, feel free to jump in. I'm a big believer in training, says Carlene. Thanks, Carlene. Yeah, 100%. You cannot work well. Your CRM cannot be your primary tool and you not know how to use it. I can't imagine a Michelin star chef walking into a kitchen and saying, I'm not going to use the stove, or I don't really know how to use that knife, so I'm going to use this little chopper instead. So, yeah. Oh, I love these. Cross-training is essential. Yes. Thank you, Catherine. Everyone in your department, Emma, yes, everyone in our department has to get certified. Oh, wow. These are great ways of loving your database. I've been considering updating it on an ongoing basis. That's great. If you are investing in your people to train and to learn more about the information, that is really, really great. And I really want to stress the fact that you want to make sure that it's at least 2 people. At least 2 people should know how to work the system, because you don't want to be in the scenario where somebody wins the Powerball, wins $60 million, and does the happy dance out of there, and no one knows how to run a tax receipt. Let's make sure we've been doing that. Other things that we can do to love our database is we can definitely clean up those drop downs, because there's nothing worse than messy drop downs. put them in the order that people need to see them. Depending on the database you use, and I know we've got mainly RE users here, but I know we've got a couple of non-RE users in the crowd. Make sure that you're designing your processes to match sort of the outline of your system. If you do have the functionality to be able to design your batches so that gift entry can be a little bit more streamlined in the way that you see things either on your remittance devices or on your screens or on where you do the data entry from, please make sure that you do that. I know some, every now and again, I will name drop because it's a little hard not to. DonorPerfect, for DonorPerfect clients or anyone out there who's using DonorPerfect, you can go ahead and rejig your screen so that it matches what you need. If you're an RE, you can rearrange your batches to meet your remittance forms. Whenever possible, make sure your processes meet your functionality, because the one thing that I keep myself sort of reminding myself about is that if the tool, your CRM, doesn't give you some sort of functionality, your process can definitely do that. So for example, what we did recently with a client is they were having a hard time figuring out why the order, and they couldn't get their receipts fast enough. By changing the order of operations internally just a little bit, they were able to streamline the process and look at it. So sometimes just looking at it at 1,000-foot view and saying, okay, where are we getting bottlenecked, and being open to that change is critical. Because change does not come easy for many of us, and I will put my hand in there. We are a tiny shop, and we've created a user manual for processes. I do pick someone to help. I do hope that I pick someone, that I'm the person that picks to win the lottery. Well, Kim, I also wish I could win the lottery. But as I always tell clients, is you have to win the lottery, make a donation, and then you can do the happy dance out of there. So you can't leave without making a donation. So, but yes, if we do win, videos are also a great way. The one thing that we've started doing for some of our clients is that we no longer make a lot of documented data, documents for them, which are great, but we combine documents with videos. So if you've ever seen one of those recipes in when you go in to go make, I just was trying to learn to make minestrone soup more like my grandmother did back in the day, and I couldn't quite get it. So I went onto the website and I got the recipe that would give me the step-by-step guide. But then we also had a video that showed me, oh, that's how you chop those nice little cubed carrots and celery so that they're all even. My plan is to make a donation for an RE consultant to come in and take over for a bit. I love that, Peggy. That's a great thing. So yeah, your processes are really, really important. And I know sometimes that takes a lot of buy-in from a lot of organizations, but making sure, just like in a home, that the flow of your home works, make sure that the flow of data works for you. Technology, that is changing at such a rapid pace that keeping up sometimes feels like a little bit of your head is spinning. A couple years ago, we did a roundup of free tools within the marketplace, and that got a lot of hits. I think we're going to have to do another tour in there and see what else is out there. But the marketplace, if you're a Razor's Edge client, has exploded. And so keeping up with what's out there is really, really important. Also keeping up with the other partners that are in the ecosystem. There's a lot of great consulting partners out there. I know some of them are here with us today. So, learning from them, signing up for their newsletters, because sometimes they can give you those tidbits so that it's just enough that you don't have to read the barrage of emails that come in and that send you to another link and send you to another link. Sometimes it's just you need that, hey, I'm going to hold on to it because I may not need it today, but at least I know where to go and find it. Integration. I know people talk about integration all the time, but integration is one of those tricky words. It can mean different things to different people. And integration does not mean the data is going to flow from your marketing tool to your database. Depending on your database and depending on the tool, yes, it can. But that yes, it can also comes at a cost. So you need to make sure that you budget for these tools. And I think organizations are going to have to start making concessions or start putting it in their budget to start looking at integration, because we keep hiring more people to do stuff. but maybe we've got to look at investing a little bit in the technology so we're not manually manipulating data files, because that can be time consuming. It can be really, really a manual process, and definitely open and prone to errors. But ideally, technology should elevate your role. It should mean that, hey, now your data person now is not bogged down with importing data files, but is now able to look at the data more conscientiously and see if they can see patterns in the data. So we're elevating the work that you can do. So that's how technology should be worked. I know it's not always the case. Some databases absolutely will provide those native integrations. The one thing I want to say about native integrations, though, when you've got that direct API connection, is that it's not always going to be perfect. And that's okay. I'm going to say that again. It's okay that the native integration doesn't follow each one of your business rules to a T. If you can get that 80-20 rule, I think you're going to be okay. And I'm open to someone saying, nope, not going to happen, not in my database. I totally get that. A big fan of Letterbox by RedArc, yes. I'm a big fan of Letterbox. We are very big fans of Letterbox by RedArc. Letterbox helps. I like to say, and I'm sure the folks at RedArc wouldn't like me saying this, but if you haven't had a chance to see Letterbox or use Letterbox, Letterbox gives you a little bit of that functionality that our email used to give you with the word merges. So that conditional word merge that came from the letterbox, from the letter field, that's sort of the feel that it gives you, and you can email or mail accordingly. So big fans of the folks at Letterbox. And Address Accelerator from Blackbaud. Yes, Address Accelerator is a great one. I want to also make a note. I think that was Carlene who put that in there. There's a difference between NCOA, which is Address Finder, and Address Accelerator. So Address Finder will use either USPS or Canada Post to provide that new address. In particular, for those of you in Canada, because it relies solely on Canada Post data, and because in Canada Post now requires you to file that card to, change of address card, which costs $70, $80 now. And a lot of people don't want to pay it. I know I didn't pay it the last time I moved. I find sometimes it's not as up to date as the USPS. Now, I don't know how USPS keeps it. I think in the United States it is free, so more people are likely to put in that change of address card. But in Canada, I find that, and especially rural areas, it's not as great. So that is NCOA or Address Finder. But to Carlene's point, Address Accelerator, amazing, because at least it standardizes the address in Canada Post or USPS standards. So, and if you are an NXT client, you can get that functionality in the web view, which is kind of why I like creating records in web view. So big tip to web view if you're doing that. Carlene, is there any other pieces that I missed in terms of Address Accelerator that you love, love, love? And I know I'm putting you on the spot there, Carlene. Oh, deliverability, 100%. It does increase deliverability. It will indicate if you're missing apartment number. Great. So no, they've got new tribute functionality though in Letterbox. So now it makes tributes a little bit easier to that tribute functionality, and information that was not easily accessible is now accessible through the API. Some other tools that we have in the Blackbaud marketplace, I would say, is if you are a Google Workspace user, the email integration. I'm going to caution you if you're a Office 365 client, that's kind of right now is a little bit of a transitional point. So that may be an issue there, but so integration is still a maybe for you Outlook users. I used to love it, but Importacular, we're also big fans of the Importacular and Omatic. We don't want to throw any shade on Omatic, but I find that for early import users, Importacular tends to be a really good tool. They also have a lot of great pre-created templates, so it's easy to use if you're a Classy user, if you're a MailChimp user, so that you don't even have to create the templates. They're all ready to go. All right, let's go back to listed. So what happens in the show is, even though they're promising them that they're going to do all of these great renovations to their house or whatever there is that the interior decorator is going to do to their home, it's still not going to look the same. They're still like, no, I'm done. I need to go look elsewhere. And I know a lot of you pointed out that price is an issue. So sometimes price can be the driver in this case. But what I want to do is looking for a new database. There is a lot of things that I want you to think about before you look at a new database. And it's not because I want you to stay with your existing database. There's no skin in the game for us on that perspective, but go into it eyes wide open. Because in that first year, you may not see a lot of the results if price is a big factor. There's almost two streams of thought when we talk about getting a new database. Is it all inclusive? And I use all in quotation marks. Or is it more of a pick and choose what you want to do? And so once again, we talked about that tricky word integration. Some databases provide direct integration for some tools, but not for others. Some of them provide you a tool, and some of them are more modular. I would say Salesforce is probably the best example of that more modular approach. Although if you are a Razor's Edge client, you're probably feeling like that because that's very different than their old business model, which was you would be given everything all baked in within the product. But I think that most platforms are moving away from that baked in model and leaving room and saying, okay, I'm going to give you 80% of what we think our clients might need, 80 to 90%. And then we're going to leave room in the ecosystem for other folks who can do it better than we can, right? So who does it best? Kind of like who wore it best. Eventbrite does event ticketing and other processes for event management quite well. So we're not going to expect a fundraising platform to be as good as some of those other niche platforms. So we've got to remember that sometimes if we're going to go the model of we're going to use the best in breed, as they call it, you may have to talk about how you're going to pop everything into your main CRM. And not everything has to go in, right? So you have to be selective, especially because some CRMs charge you by the record, right? This is not uncommon because the cost of the cloud becomes more and more important, becomes more and more expensive. Functionality. If you were thinking about choosing a new database, what do you have to think about? I know everybody wants Nirvana, everybody wants that perfect home, but in order to get that perfect home, A, price, B, functionality. Ask everyone on your team, what are the 2 or 3 bits of functionality that they could not live without? So if you are a gift entry person, that's how I started in the world of fundraising. One of the things that I couldn't have lived without would be a quick way of entering gifts like RE batch or DP batch. I know Virtuous also has an equivalent of it. Ease of use, 100%. A lot of new RE users, especially because I know we've got mainly RE users in here. Those of us who came from the database view world, we have a hard time going into the NXT world. But as I like to say, that train has left the station. We are Blackbot is committed to moving into NXT and into WebView. So we're going to have to figure out how to get in there. Yes, a lot of our best and loved functionality may or may not come with the new house, but that's like moving into a new house, right? Sometimes you have to take the good with the bad. We moved a couple years ago because our family was growing. My son had a room that was literally like 7 by 7. I think it might have been like a closet or something at some point in time. Although our new house has a much better room for my son, the bathrooms, they're a little small. So we had to take the good with the bad. So that's what I mean by going eyes wide open. So ease of use is great. Very, very important. But if ease of use for adaptability for some of your other staff that aren't willing to use the database comes into play, I would say yes. Definitely ease of use is a big one. Prioritize what you need. Are you a organization that is now shifting more to volunteer management? That is becoming a bigger focus in your org. So you're going to maybe want to find a database that allows you to integrate different volunteer platforms into your database. Reporting, that is my big one. Your CRM is only as good as the reports it can provide. Really, really important. For those of us that have been using RE 20 plus years, and are a little bit cranky about WebView, it's been on the horizon for years. I don't want to be a beta tester. I just want to do my job. Fair enough. That's definitely something that we hear a lot from the folks in the Razor's Edge crew. That is really, really tough. But I think like a lot of technology, and once again, I've never been in that Silicon Valley startup mode, but where I see that creeping into our environment would be that we probably they go through beta testing, then they go through general release. And I would say it's probably 60% done. And maybe I'm being generous. Carlene, keep me honest. And then they want the community to come in and pipe in and say, oh, this isn't working, that isn't working. In some platforms, that cycle between customer and production is really, really fast. In some cases, it's not. And I know sometimes for those of you who use RE are probably thinking, yeah, maybe not so much. Make sure you create a scorecard. We do have a scorecard on our database. If you are looking for functionality and you want to be more objective instead of subjective, and give everyone it either a 1 if you don't meet it, a 2 as a maybe meets this functionality, and 3 means it's meeting it at least to 80%. 3s are a higher score, 1s are the lowest score, or if it doesn't have it at all, it's a 0. And then let the numbers do the talking. Price is a big one. The more bells and whistles you get, the more it's going to cost you. Look at the fine print of the contract. That's so important. So have someone on your team who is if you don't have a legal person on staff, make sure you pass it to someone on your board or volunteer who, looks at contracts. That would be helpful. Understand that your CRM platform is an investment. So you have to invest in this, just like your home. It's an investment. Once again, I am looking at redoing our front garden because it looks, all we have is grass and a little sad little tree in front. I'd like to spruce it up and maybe put some flowers up there, maybe put some shrubs just to give it a little bit more curb appeal. You have to invest, and it's going to be an ongoing thing because we don't have the money tree in the background in our backyard. So we're going to have to do it little by little. So you having a plan as the data person will be important. For those of you who are going to go to a new CRM, once you figure out the CRM, you've got the function, you've got the functionality, you've got the CRM you're going to go to. I want you to look at making sure you have at least 1, if not 2 people dedicated to this project. And I know that comes as a shocker. When we work with clients, that always comes as a shocker because you cannot manage a project of that magnitude from the corner of your desk. It's just not going to happen. I don't care how good the partner that you work with is or how good the company is. They say, oh no, we'll do it all for you. Well, can you imagine if you were moving your home and you just let the movers put data wherever, put your boxes wherever they wanted? Well, your kitchen stuff could end up in the bathroom and your bathroom stuff could end up in the basement, and you're going to be looking around for data everywhere or your boxes everywhere. So please, please, please make sure you've got someone on your team managing the process. If you want a shirt or a mug that Christina has been put up there, let me know. Some people are asking. Invest in documentation for your team. Someone's got to be responsible for documenting everything. Remember, paper documentation or Word documents, Excel documents are important, but also have some videos. Loom, relatively inexpensive as a tool and can really, really help you with that. OBS may be another tool. That's actually a free tool that you can use for recording stuff. So, but you've got to invest. I'd say in year 1, 2, and maybe creeping into year 3, depending on how big your org is, it will probably cost you the same, if not more, than your current database. But after that is when you will really start to reap with the rewards. For those of you who are experts in migrations, what else has, any other tools? I know we've got Peter, you've done a couple of migrations in your lifetime. Carlene, I'm sure you do too. Anything you want to share with the group? Scribe is out there too. Yep. That got put out there as a powerful tool for recording and creating management tools. Basically, give yourself a budget, and just like with anything else, there's going to be moving costs. So make sure you budget accordingly. You invest in your team to make sure you learn the new system and continue to invest. So I think some of the takeaways as we wrap up: no CRM is perfect. You need to invest in your people first. Absolutely invest in your people first, your processes and your technology. It all works together. It can't be done. Realistically, Time for growing pains and the loss of muscle memory, 100%. Thanks, Carlene. That was a really, really big one. Yeah, muscle memory is hard. Your old database used to have this button here that did this, and you can't bemoan it when you go to the new database and it doesn't quite work the same way. Change is hard. You just got to look at the big picture. Switching databases will require a significant financial investment. Before we wrap up, are there any questions that anyone has that they're wanting to ask that maybe we didn't address during this webinar? Catherine M. I've already told my directors that I can't manage a migration project and do my current job, and I can see it creeping in with us. Like, can you just, oh, Catherine, I had someone tell me a long, long time ago, one of my developers when I worked at Blackbaud many, many years ago, that if you start a question with, can you just, 9 times out of 10, it's really hard to just. So I'll let you use that one too. Really, really hard. Thank you, Peter. Cultural transition, constant evangelization outside of the advancement office is required. Absolutely, 100%, especially if you're in higher ed or in a hospital foundation. They're going to wonder, why is it taking longer to produce tax receipts? Why is it taking longer for you to do this? What do you do? Why do you need to spend so much money on this new system? Why is your team acting like it's so difficult? Let people know what's happening. A project team and a stakeholder, an executive stakeholder who can talk about what's going on will be very, very helpful, 100%. Very generally speaking, which in your opinion is the best donor CRM right now? Ooh, Emmett, toughie. I'm going to say it depends. And I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it's not intended to be a cop-out. For some organizations, depending on your needs, it's going to be really, really, there is definitely one database for you. But it doesn't mean it's the only database. So remember, what technology doesn't give you, your processes can give you. I'm going to give you a couple, and please, by no means is this a final list, but I would say if you're doing work with major gifts, planned giving, etc., I would say definitely the Razor's Edge is pretty good. Virtuous is also very good in that regard. If you look at reporting, let's say DonorPerfect for out-of-the-box reporting, DonorPerfect, very, very impressed with their out-of-the-box reporting. If you're looking at integration points, I would say Virtuous, and when I say integration points, I mean native integration points where you can, there's a direct file into the financial system, the marketing system, event systems, etc. I would say Virtuous and DonorPerfect are really good at that. The Razor's Edge is pretty good, except it's not direct integrations. So some of them are and some of them aren't. So I'm going with 100% direct native API integrations. Those would be my 2, but RE comes in at a close second. I'm leaving sort of Salesforce and Bloomrang and some of those other folks out of it. Well, Salesforce is very modular, so everything needs to be, it's like Lego. You have to build it. You have to build it on your own or have someone build it for you. I know Kindsight, which is the merger of Donor Search. Help me out. I remember seeing them. I can't remember all of them, but they're also, there's a lot of native integration in there. But remember what I said, native integration doesn't always mean the data is going to land where you want it to land. And that's okay. One of the things I will say though, Emmett, from having done, I think I was fortunate enough to work for Blackbaud many, many years ago for a long period of time. And I've been doing this for, overall, I've been doing sort of database management for about 25 years. I would say the smaller your organization, the leaner your team, the more you should invest in native integrations where the data flows end to end, because you don't have the time to have someone stop their day and figure out, okay, now it's time to rejig this data file, and I've got to change the formatting of the date, and I got to change the formatting. I got to make sure that it doesn't drop all the zeros out of my zip codes, and I got to make sure that the translation is going well. So if the fund equals this, the appeal will equal that, or the solicitation will equal that. I would say native integrations are the way to go. If you were a little bit more of a larger, mid to larger size organization, then you have the opportunity to custom tailor your clothes a little bit, right? Custom tailor your solution and your technology. So I would say you can invest in that, but that's sort of my general rule of thumb. Let's see. It really does depend, though. A key question is the amount of resources you will have to dedicate post-migration. Oh my gosh, thank you, Peter, for saying that. 100%. Even after you've got someone who runs a migration, there are what we call post-migration tasks. And we usually create a spreadsheet for our client about post-migration and how we do that. So because there's always, oh yeah, you know what? We thought that was going to look really good in the data, but now we're going to use it a little differently. Yeah, 100%. And will you be able to have a developer on call or within reach? 100%. What's going to happen after you've signed off on that migration? Quick question. Is there any appetite, you think, for a webinar about sort of the how to manage a migration project, how to manage it sort of like a project manager? Thank you, Peter. Got to head up to the Fonthill for lunchtime. Thanks, Peter. It's been great. Any other questions that people might have? I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. And thank you, Frankie, for popping in that new slide. If you want to get a hold of us and ask us any more questions, my email is lucy@Sentinel Consulting, or sign up for our newsletter at sentinelconsulting.ca. If you've got more questions, let me know. And if you got any more ideas for webinars, we want to put on webinars that people can learn from, and don't sound too salesy. So that was hopefully we achieved that goal.